In time-honoured tradition, we pause today to remember all those Australians who fought and fell on foreign soil during the Vietnam War. Between 1962 and 1973, some 60,000 Australians served in Vietnam, more than 3,000 were wounded, and 523 were tragically killed. Many Australians who served did so willingly, having enlisted in our Defence Force. But some 15,000 Australians were conscripted under the National Service Scheme. For the soldiers, the conditions and close quarter fighting were exacting and exhausting. As the war raged, protests grew on the Australian home front, emulating those taking place around the world. They were driven by sentiments ranging from anti-conscription to anti-war to anti-capitalism. The protest movement of the time has come to dominate our national memory of the Vietnam War. It comes to overshadow the important historical context in which our nation made a military commitment to the conflict. Following the end of the Second World War, countries and peoples had fallen under the Soviet sphere of influence. Communism had not only taken root in Europe, it was also on the march across the world. In Southeast Asia, there was a fear that many nations would fall like dominoes to communism. Historian Peter Edwards wrote, "In the ideological dimension of the Cold War, communist movements around the world gained inspiration and motivation from any success." It was against this backdrop that Prime Minister Menzies, in April of 1965, committed Australian combat troops to Vietnam to support Western-aligned South Vietnam to repel the threat from communist North Vietnam. While Australia's alliance with the United States was a factor which influenced our entering the Vietnam War, we did not blindly follow America's lead. Our combat commitment was a sovereign decision, one taken due to credible concerns about regional instability and threats posed by communist regimes to free peoples. Much to our national shame, Australian soldiers were derided while they were serving abroad. Many were forsaken when they returned home from the war. And even 51 years on from the end of the war, our Vietnam veterans continue to be the target of abuse. This time from a new movement of protesters who vandalise our war memorials and illegally hang banners from Parliament House, accusing our veterans of war crimes. On this Vietnam Veterans Day, may we grasp the historical context and the reasons why Australia sent forces to Vietnam. For when we do three things. We shine a light on the ignorance of today's protesters. We remember the meaning behind the suffering and sacrifice of Australians who served in Vietnam. And we express our profound national gratitude to those Vietnam veterans who are still with us for all they did for our country and in defence of our region, lest we forget.